A homestead operating under the principles of modern Western democracy would be a masterclass in controlled chaos, a system where decisions are made through endless debates, manipulated consensus, and short term gratification, rather than through wisdom, efficiency, and long term survival. It would be an unstable, dysfunctional entity, mirroring the decline and hypocrisy of democratic nations, where everyone is promised a voice, but real power is always held by those who control the narrative. In theory, democracy is supposed to empower the family members, just as it is supposed to empower the citizens of a country. In reality, it creates inefficiency, division, and a slow collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. At the top of the homestead, the father and mother, instead of functioning as natural leaders and decision makers, would be forced to pretend they are merely representatives of the household. Every decision would require a vote. What to eat? Put it to a vote. Who does the chores? Vote on it. When should the fields be tilled, the animals fed, or the firewood gathered? Another vote. In theory, this means everyone has a say. In practice, it means nothing gets done efficiently. Every task is subject to negotiation, procrastination, and eventual compromise, which inevitably leads to the lowest common denominator prevailing. Instead of strong leadership ensuring survival and order, everything becomes a matter of opinion, emotional appeal, and short term self interest. Naturally, the children quickly realize how to manipulate this system. Just as in a democratic society where the media, corporations, and special interest groups sway public opinion to serve their own ends, the louder, more persuasive children begin to dominate. The eldest child might form alliances with a younger sibling to secure more privileges, while another might appeal to emotions, crying about unfair treatment to gain sympathy. Rational decision making is replaced by mob rule, just as in democratic nations, where votes are driven by feelings, propaganda, and immediate desires rather than logic, merit, or long term strategy. Equality is promised, but in reality, power consolidates in the hands of those who know how to manipulate the system. In a nation, that means corporations, lobbyists, and media giants. In the homestead, it means the most cunning or emotionally persuasive children who quickly learn how to form voting blocks to tilt decisions in their favor. The younger children, lacking understanding, are easily influenced and become pawns, much like the masses in a democratic state are swayed by media narratives. The parents, no longer respected as authority figures, must beg, bribe, or convince their own children to go along with necessary decisions, instead of simply enforcing them based on wisdom and experience. Over time, discipline erodes. No one wants to vote for hard work or self sacrifice. The parents suggest that everyone contributes equally, but the children, just like the citizens of a democracy, vote for policies that benefit themselves in the short term. No one wants to gather firewood when they could be playing. No one wants to milk the cows when they could be relaxing. Slowly, responsibility shifts to the few members who still care about the survival of the homestead. The same way that, in democratic societies, a shrinking number of productive citizens carry the burden of taxes, labor, and national defense, while the rest vote themselves benefits, the responsible members of the homestead become the unpaid workers. The others, they enjoy the fruits of democracy, benefiting from resources without contributing to them. As resentment builds, corruption seeps in. The older children realize they can start promising things in exchange for votes: extra food portions, a night off from chores, or privileges not available to the others. A ruling class begins to emerge. Instead of equality, the homestead creates a two-tiered system where those who control the vote, either by persuasion, manipulation, or sheer numbers, gain the most power. This is no different from how democratic nations fall under the control of political elites who promise the masses free benefits while consolidating power for themselves. Eventually, the entire homestead becomes dependent on external forces. Since no one wants to vote for hard work, food production declines, maintenance is neglected, and discipline is non existent. Now, instead of being self sufficient, the family starts relying on neighbors, buying more supplies rather than producing them, and looking for outside help to keep things running. This is identical to how democratic nations lose self sufficiency, importing cheap goods instead of producing their own, outsourcing manufacturing, relying on welfare rather than work, and accumulating unsustainable debt. When winter comes, the consequences of democracy hit hard. The firewood is insufficient because no one wanted to cut it. The food supplies are low because everyone voted for leisure instead of labor. The livestock is unhealthy because no one wanted to do the unpleasant work of caring for them. Now, there is no vote that can reverse the damage. Nature does not care about democracy. Survival is not a popularity contest. The homestead either suffers or collapses entirely, just as democratic nations eventually face economic ruin, internal division, and social decay when reality catches up with them. The fatal flaw of democracy, whether in a homestead or a nation, is that it assumes all voices are equal when they are not. It places decision making in the hands of those who lack the wisdom, experience, and foresight to make the right choices. It prioritizes short term gratification over long term survival. It rewards manipulation, emotional appeal, and deceit over discipline, responsibility, and logic. It creates the illusion of equality while ensuring that real power belongs to those who understand how to exploit the system. A homestead like a nation does not thrive under democracy. It thrives under leadership, under a structure where authority is respected, decisions are made based on intelligence and experience, and individual desires are subordinated to the survival and strength of the whole. Democracy is an illusion that collapses the moment it faces real world consequences. The only question is how long it takes before the house of cards falls.